Facebook looks like it's online. We're waiting for YouTube to finally get around to going live for us here as well. And looks like we're getting close. And now we are live on all three platforms, on YouTube, Facebook, and Periscope. Hey, my name is Robert Gruler. I'm a criminal defense lawyer. Today I want to talk about a new criminal charge. New charges have been filed against Jake Paul. So Jake Paul is a very, very big, very, kind of internet famous guy, somebody who was caught up in the George Floyd 2020 protests, and he was just charged with 2 crimes out of the city of Scottsdale. Our office is about 5 minutes north of the city of Scottsdale City Court. We practice criminal law exclusively, and we know a lot about this particular topic. So today, I want to run through the different charges that Jake Paul received, what they mean, and then what is going to happen to him, what is going to be in his future moving forward. So as a quick refresher, if you don't know who he is a very, very big YouTube influencer. He's got over 20 million subscribers right there, 20.1 million subscribers. And he was actually in town, or I don't know if he lives here or where he's from, but there's video footage of him being involved in some of the 2020 protests in Arizona, in Scottsdale in particular. We had an incident where everybody was going out and going into a local mall, going into the Apple store, and so on and so forth. And apparently Jake Paul was involved in some of that. And so here is a clip just for a little bit of background on what we see that actually happened. Comes from TMZ.com. So it looks like there's Jake Paul right there, kind of outside of the mall. People are, lighting off fireworks, firecrackers, and things. So he's not actually in the mall just yet. He's outside of the mall, presumably.
Idiots, bro. Literally, I walked right here.
He's been asked to leave, or there's law enforcement around the area. Again, we don't know. We're only seeing this from his perspective at the moment.
Look at him pointing guns at me right now.
So getting guns pointed. So this is all happening, it looks like, on Snapchat.
That's tear gas, bro.
And then we fast forward a little bit, and they're inside the mall. All right, so this is where a lot of the problem comes into play. So they're inside the mall. The mall's closed. The mall's locked down. No right to be there.
Wait. Yeah, go.
And I believe we see Jake Paul at some point in there.
Oh shit! Go!
This actually may be from his feed itself. So I don't know specifically what all he has posted or what all the evidence is that they have, but the allegations are fairly simple. So I want to show you where those come from. So what I'm about to show you is all public record, so you can just go find this stuff on your own if you want. You can go to the Scottsdale City Court website. So I'm going to show you what that looks like right here. So you go to this web address here, go to the Scottsdale City Court website, and what you'll do is you'll see that you can put in his name, so Jake Paul. When you click search, you're going to get a copy of his court record. And what we'll see here, he's got 2 different charges. So he's got criminal trespass in the 2nd degree. He's got unlawful assembly and the refusal to disperse. So I pulled up these 2 statutes. He's got court that is going to be scheduled for July 8th, so about 30 days out. And here's what was going on. So there was a warrant request. So all of this basically happened on the same day. So that was about 2 days ago. The prosecutor filed a complaint. They filed the Form 4, which is basically the probable cause statement. Probable cause found. There was a warrant that was requested to go arrest him. Looks like that motion was denied. So they just instead issued a summons. So rather than going and arresting him, it looks like they just issued a summons and said, we're not going to go track you down or issue a warrant or have somebody come and get you. We're just going to send you a court date notice. And on July 8th, you're going to be expected to come back to court for that particular setting. So you see those 2 charges: criminal trespass in the 2nd degree, unlawful assembly, refusal to disperse. So what do those mean? Well, before we dive into the statute itself, let me give you a quick overview on sort of how Arizona law works in general. So here is the penalty structure that we see in Arizona criminal cases. Hang on one second. So here we've got civil tickets. So this is like your regular, ordinary, speeding tickets. Class 3 misdemeanor, that's going to be for things like criminal speeding, reckless driving. Class 1 misdemeanor is going to be for crimes like a DUI. Class 6, we're talking about possession of marijuana, drug crimes. Class 5, we're talking about aggravated assault on an officer. Class 4s are going to be your possession of dangerous drugs, narcotic drugs, prescription drugs. Also going to be a lot of aggravated DUI charges here. And then these are the more serious offenses. So Class 3s are going to be crimes like aggravated assault with a deadly weapon or a dangerous instrument. Class 2s are going to be all of your sex crimes. It's going to be your sexual assault, anything involving children. Also going to be a lot of conspiracy charges we'll see out of there. And then, of course, Class 1 are going to be your murder charges. So that is the scale. Now, where does Jake Paul fall on the scale? So let's take a quick look at the statutes. We're going to go over to the first one, criminal trespass in the second degree. A person commits criminal trespass in the second degree by knowingly entering or remaining fully in or on non-residential structure or in any fenced commercial yard. So what part are we talking about? Really this part here. Criminal trespass by knowingly entering or remaining on any non-residential structure. Okay, so it's remaining unlawfully. So he had no lawful authority to be there. The store was closed, and the mall was closed, and they were inside regardless. So certainly that type of charge does not look particularly good, right? They had no lawful authority to be there is going to be the government's claim. Now, the counterclaim to that is that they do have some authority to be there. That it's not a strong claim. I think that Jake Paul's position on this was he was just documenting, so he was more like a journalist rather than somebody who was being a part of the unlawful activity. He's documenting, he's a journalist. They have a lot of additional protections. I don't think it enables them to break the law, but that is, sort of one of the defenses that could be used for that unlawful trespass charge. Or a lot of these things get negotiated down, so they get reduced down from a regular, criminal charge into something civil. Or if it's Jake Paul's first offense, maybe it's something that he can go and take a class. It's called diversion. He can take a program, and then in exchange for completing that program, they will dismiss the charges against him. So this is a Class 2 misdemeanor. You can see here it's a Class 2, which means it's still a misdemeanor. So it's in this category here. It's a misdemeanor right here. And so it's kind of on the middle end of the misdemeanor spectrum. That's what we're looking for. Now, people are asking, well, what are the penalties for that? So the maximum penalties for a Class 2 misdemeanor are up to 4 months in jail. 4 months in jail, up to fines of $750 plus surcharges. You can be on probation for 2 years. So those are the maximum penalties that Jake Paul could theoretically get. Is he going to? Very unlikely that they're going to ask for 4 months of jail for something like this, especially if it's his first offense, and especially if he is willing to show that he's got additional evidence about not contributing to this. He was just documenting things for his YouTube channel. Whatever his defense ends up being, whatever his side of the story ends up being, there certainly will be a theme there that we can, us or some other defense attorney could certainly use in his defense. But the penalties are severe. Typically what ends up happening on charges that are Class 2 misdemeanors like this, especially for a first offense, will be that he just pays a fine. He gets a criminal conviction on his record, and that criminal conviction essentially will follow him around forever, because Arizona, by some stupid reason, we don't have a really strong expungement mechanism, meaning we can't wipe people's records clean. We can only do what's called a motion to set aside that conviction, and that is something that kind of helps clear up a criminal record, but it doesn't eliminate it entirely. Other states have more clean slate programs where we just don't have that here in Arizona. So it's likely to be just a fine. I don't know what the prosecutors here are going to do because of the fact that it is Jake Paul, because of the fact that he has such an audience. I don't know if they're going to try to make an example out of him or not, but by and large, these types of charges are just fines in most situations. Now let's talk about the other charge, because that one was also important. So this is the unlawful assembly charge. Okay, so congregating with two or more persons with the intent to engage in conduct constituting, what does that say? A riot as defined in 132903. And then this one, being present at an assembly of two or more other persons who are engaged or have the readily apparent intent to engage in conduct constituting a riot as defined in 132903, knowingly remaining there and refusing to obey an official order to disperse. All right, so let's see. What did they charge him with? They charged him with A2. So they're trying to cite him under this statute here. So just being present at an assembly of 2 or more people who are engaged or have readily apparent intent to engage in conduct constituting a riot as defined in 132903, and knowingly remaining there and refusing to obey an official order to disperse. Okay, so this is a statute that has a little bit more defense. You can defend this one a little bit more. And how would we do that? Well, what we would want to do is certainly combat this part of the statute. Intent to engage in conduct constituting a riot, right? Jake Paul has an entirely different explanation for what he was doing, and he actually released a public statement condemning it. Down here, he says, to be absolutely clear, neither I nor anyone in our group engaged in any looting, vandalism, horrific injustices. We got tear gas and so on. I understand the anger that led to the destruction we witnessed. And while it's not an answer, it's important. We do our best. Let's all move forward and so on and so forth. So basically, they're just saying that they were doing their part to peacefully protest, and they were essentially documenting. We were strictly documenting, not engaging in any of what we saw on a lot of the camera. And I personally did not see him do anything that looked like rioting. I mean, he certainly was in a location that was questionable, at kind of best at questionable. But did we see any rioting conduct? Was he breaking things? Was he smashing things? Or was he actually documenting things? Because the statute says that it requires intent to engage in conduct constituting a riot. So if you can disprove that, if you can say there was no actual riot taking place, or he wasn't engaging in any conduct, he had no intent to engage in any conduct constituting a riot, that charge may be beatable. It's very difficult to prove somebody's intent. You know, what did they intend to do? Did he go there and just intend to document it? Or was he out there to smash things and break things? So there is a defense there, whereas the other one's a little bit more cut and dry. It's just he was physically in a place where he had no lawful authority to be there. This one's different because it introduces intent. There is also a different part of the statute where we're looking at whether there was whether they were remaining and there was an official order to disperse. So I also didn't see that in the video either. I didn't see, any law enforcement or anybody actually telling them you can't protest here. I don't know exactly when that the underlying incident happened, whether the curfew was in effect or not. But you would presume that according to the statute, you need somebody to come out and give you an official order. So that needs to happen at some point, and then you need to refuse that order, and then that is what is going to lead to some criminal liability for you. Now, unlike the other charge for the criminal trespass, we actually see that this one is a little bit more serious. It's a class 1 misdemeanor. And if we go back to our chart here, the class 1 misdemeanor is sort of in the middle. It's the highest level misdemeanor offense that we have. So this charge here is the same charge that you would get for a DUI or domestic violence or a lot of other very serious charges. We see a lot of stuff in this particular category. DUIs are things that you can go to jail for, mandatory jail in Arizona. Now, again, I don't know what they're going to do with Mr. Paul. We don't know. This is not a very common charge. This is a new charge, and I don't know what the Scottsdale City Court or their prosecutor's offices are going to do with just this charge in this case. It's a class 1 misdemeanor, which means the maximum penalty, if they wanted to, they could request that Jake Paul goes to jail for 6 months. That's the maximum penalty on a class 1 misdemeanor, which is obviously a very long time. Also 5 months of probation, fines of $2,500 plus surcharges. Those can be, $4,000. So this can all get pretty expensive pretty quickly because of his following and his audience. I don't think money's going to be a concern. The bigger concern, of course, is going to be whether or not he actually has to go into custody, whether he's serving any time in custody. I'm sure he does not want to do that. And, by and large, I think if this was anybody else, if they had no criminal record at all, I don't think that they would be doing jail time. I think that prosecutors, I'm hopeful, will be a little lenient on the people who are involved in these protests. As long as they're not burning building downs and smashing windows, if they're out there protesting, we give them a little bit of leeway there. We have a strong tradition in America of protesting, of petitioning our government for a redress of grievances. We have a lawful ability to do that. It's baked into our Constitution and all of our different forms of government. Everywhere we go, we have the right to vote and to petition and to run for office and to say the things that we want to say and to protest and be where we want to be. And so I'm hopeful that they are going to treat Jake Paul like they would treat anybody else, and this would be essentially a slap on the wrist. Some fines, maybe some classes, maybe some community service, but no permanent criminal record unless he's got a lot of other criminal history that I don't know about. I would hope that he would get a sort of a diversion offer, take some classes, take some community service, and end up with both charges being dismissed. Okay, I didn't see him doing anything particularly bad, but there's, as is the case with stories these days, videos just keep coming out. And so we certainly can wait for more evidence to come out. But like I said, I am hopeful that this kind of goes smoothly. I think if this happened to anybody else, it probably would be a diversion offer where he takes some classes and the whole things go away. Now, if he pleads guilty, they will be permanent. If he pleads guilty to both of those, so he will have a permanent criminal record, which, as a result of the 2020 Floyd protests, may be a badge of honor, may not be a bad thing, but especially with the other things that he has going on, a criminal history may not be that important to him. But on the other side, maybe it is. Maybe it is. I think it should be to everybody. You want your record clean. You want your reputation kept intact. So that's what's going on with Jake Paul. And I got some questions from some friends and from actually a gal named Lene Brody, HollywoodLife.com, sent over an email. So I'm going to send you back a copy of this video. And if you have any other questions about what's going to happen to him, you just go ahead and drop a comment right here on this channel. Hit subscribe. We cover all the criminal justice news on this channel on a regular basis. Mr. Paul's next court date is going to be an arraignment. It's a criminal division arraignment on July 8th, 2020 at 8:30 a.m. Courtroom 4. Courtroom 4 is traditionally it's Judge Blake. Judge Blake does a lot of arraignments and handles a lot of these types of charges. If Mr. Paul is going to be going in on his own, I see that he does not have an attorney, it looks like, at this point in time. If he is going to be going in on his own, Judge Blake likes people to be very, very direct and not ostentatious at all. Very yes, no, yes, Your Honor, no, Your Honor, answer questions. It's no opportunity to argue, no opportunity to, kind of be flamboyant or make a show out of this courtroom. He will not appreciate that at all. So if that is something that is sort of on the agenda, he would be well within his right to take you into custody if he thought that you were sort of violating any orders of the court. So keep that in mind. Of course, if he does get an attorney, then the attorney will handle that arraignment for him. Our office, we handle these types of charges all the time. So if Mr. Paul is watching this and has any desire to speak with us or would like to collab on something about what's going on in his world, we would be very happy to do that. Would love to speak with you. So, or anybody from your team. Same goes for anybody. Quite frankly, anybody who has been charged with a crime out of Scottsdale, anybody, I talked about this on the show, I think a week ago, anybody who's been charged with any of these protest crimes, I'm very curious as to what is happening on the other end, because we have not seen a lot of them come through because they're all of the arrests are happening like in the last couple days. So all of these charges are being filed. We saw Jake Paul's were just filed. And I want to know, I want to dig into these things. I want to see, what does the probable cause statement say? Who are the arresting officers? Who's the assigned prosecutor? Who's responsible for all these decisions? So this is, of course, not just a shout out to Jake Paul and his team over there, but if anybody in Arizona has been charged with one of these crimes, we would love to speak with you, and we can talk about, working something out. However we can finagle that. We want to help. We want to be a part of the conversation. So that's what's going on with Jake Paul. Hopefully he gets his case resolved. Don't want to see anybody have long-standing criminal charges, of course. And that's all that I've got for today. So do me a favor, hit subscribe. If you have been charged with a crime and you want to know a little bit more about some of the things that we do in our firm, grab a copy of my book. It's called Beginning to Winning. It's how to fight your case and succeed in the criminal justice system, written by me. It's got a bunch of good stuff on the back of it there. So check it out. It's available on Amazon. If you want to give our office a call as well, we'll just put the number in the description. So subscribe for me. Love you very much. Stay safe out there.